Hello, Rethreading Lives podcast listeners. We have a very, very important event coming up. As you know, as you listen to this podcast and you get to hear stories of people who've been through hard things and they go through the process and they come out on the other side strong, that is what we want for our survivors at Rethreaded. And on January 23rd from 6 to 8, we are going to be hosting our annual Human Trafficking Awareness Panel. And on this panel, you will get to learn from experts in the field, including survivors, on what is human trafficking, what is its deeper effect on people, and how, as a community, we can come together and work to create opportunities for survivors and also decrease the amount of human trafficking that's happening in our city. So if you are looking for a deeper knowledge of how to make an impact in the world, this is the event you want. It is going to be in person in Jacksonville, Florida, and live streamed. So whether you're listening from far or close, you can participate in this event. And just go to rethreaded.com, purchase your tickets, and come and learn how you can make a difference. Welcome to the Rethreading Lives podcast, where we talk about how to take your threads of harm and through the rethreaded process, transform them into something that actually helps you reach your potential. We'll talk with different leaders in our city and our country and find out what they're doing. You'll walk away from listening to this podcast with useful insights and captivating stories on how you yourself can rethread your life and your business. I'm Kristin Keen, and this is the Rethreading Lives podcast. Hello, Rethreading Lives listeners. Today is recap day. As you know, on this podcast, we explore the intentional application of the 5 powers to heal and expand our potential. Those 5 powers being time, community, openness, vision, and purpose. And we bring on listeners who have been through hard things, who have done hard things, and we talk about how they intentionally have drawn on those powers to make it through hard things and reach their potential. And today's guest is no exception. What an exceptional human being, Dr. Joe. He runs his own podcast. That's, I think, how we initially met. He is a neuroscientist. He's a doctor of the brain. And he is so filled with laughter and kindness and warmth. And I had such a fun time sitting with him. So let's take a listen and recap.
I became a neurologist because I was in a situation where I had this horrible thing happen to me when I was in med school, where I had a hemorrhage in the brain. This is like one of those weird stories.
This is like a Grey's Anatomy episode.
It can happen, yeah. Well, my family always did say that our lives are like a telenovela. So yeah, I guess this fits. This fits in that direction, but it fits in that whole larger scheme.
So I'll just pause right here for a second, because when I did his interview, I had just been watching Grey's Anatomy. I did not make it all the way through. I couldn't handle it anymore. So then all my lens when I'm talking to doctors and nurses and everything became Grey's Anatomy. So there was a running joke through the entire podcast about basically making myself an expert because I watched Grey's Anatomy. He played right along. He was wonderful.
I had a situation where I was in the middle of a test, and it's a developmental thing that it started bleeding in the brain, and it was serious. It was life-threatening. I didn't know. I just had a bad headache. I assumed it was stress. I have very little memory. My wife is a nurse. God bless her. She knew something was wrong because I wasn't acting right that night after the test. And she takes me to an emergency room in New Orleans. I had very bad health insurance. It was an HMO of a certain age, and it's like, there's nothing health maintenance about it. I'll put it that way. And as she tells it, she drove past all these great neurosurgical centers to go to the place that they had to go to. When she gets there, the ER doctor, and this is where it gets to what you were saying, proceeds to tell her without examining me, other than seeing that I'm not with it. He goes, "You have to accept the fact that your husband is a second-year medical student who's under a lot of stress. And this is all cocaine. I've seen it before. He hadn't done a drug test or anything. This is all cocaine. You have to accept that he has." right?
Shut up. This is a real story.
I am not. How I wish it wasn't a real
The doctor told your wife
Yes.
he's addicted to cocaine.
There was no urine test, no blood test, but he'd seen it many times before in an,
Wow.
and so she then you're out of your mind. Next thing you know, I'm slowly kind of worsening, and she luckily got a family member to help, and finally when someone did a CAT scan, they saw the blood, and then I needed to go to emergency surgery. Long story short, my next memory, so I have no memory. This is my wife's memories because I don't know what happened. I'm waking up in a recovery room, and I'm being told.
I'm just going to pause here for a second because I have been thinking a lot about community. I'm about to do a training on it soon on community, and thinking of our greatest desire as people is to be seen. And when people aren't seen, when people aren't listened to, when they aren't seen, it literally kills people. It literally harms people. I mean, in Dr. Joe's case, it almost killed him because someone didn't want to take the time to see him. So I'm holding both sides of this coin, right? I'm holding both sides, and I'm remembering of all the times that I chose not to see someone, that I'm so insistent on my opinion, my way. And my judgments, my prejudgments about, I know what the situation is. I know that person. I've seen them before, and putting them in a box and automatically using my bias to keep them there, and how much harm that has caused. And then the times when people have chosen to see me, and when I have chosen to see people, and how that changes the game, and how we have all these external factors, right, that stop us from seeing each other, which is our greatest desire as human beings.
And I'm being told out of nowhere that, hey, hi, Mr. Servant, I wasn't doctor then. You're at X recovery room. You've just had brain surgery. And it was talk about what in the world. But it started a journey of 2 months in the hospital.
2 months.
Because it got complicated and infectious. But everything turned out. Here I am. But the point is, it was probably the best medical education I could have ever had, because at that moment I got to see, this is how you present to someone when you're in a state of disbelief. This is what, when you can't get an IV in, or when, what are the things that stay with you? Nursing shift or with hospital life. So it always got back to your original question. Well, it's how I wanted to be treated. We had wonderful care, and we had nightmarish care.
Oh, this is so good. This is why I loved it so much, is because he's basically talking about the rethreading process, right? He took this situation where he wasn't seen. It literally almost killed him. And as it goes on in the interview, he talks a lot about, instead of getting lost in the blame and shame, and of course the doctor did wrong, but he didn't get stuck there, that he remembers what it's like not to be seen or taken seriously. And every time one of his patients walks into his office, he remembers that. And he holds this vision of how he wants people to feel and be treated. And he slows down and he sees people because of his own experience being rethreaded into something that helps him reach his potential, because that could have destroyed his medical career. He could have turned bitter and busy, but instead it slowed him down and allows him to hold his patients differently. I love that. Human trafficking is just a symptom of disconnection. There's not a cure for it, it's a symptom of the dehumanization of people, and trauma passed on, and addiction, and people taking advantage of people. I mean, it's
right, taking it to the ultimate bad place.
Yeah.
It's just changing how you view someone beneath you, because you don't know them. It'll be there. I think that's just one of the dark parts of human nature that doesn't excuse it. It just means we have to always try to find a
harder.
way to appeal to the better nature that maybe I'm an over optimist, that I do believe is there for everyone.
Oh, I love Dr. Joe. I do believe it's there for everyone. And I guess deep in my heart, that's what I believe too. I've actually been thinking about this because women come to Rethreaded and it's almost like they're a shell of themselves. And then over time, as they heal, the pieces are put back together, their brain heals, the heart heals, and they get to blossom into who they're created to be. The thing is, it was always there, right? It was always there inside them. And part of me believes that inside the buyer, inside the trafficker, inside the pimp, that there is that person inside them, the goodness, the person who wants to live out their purpose with love in the world. And maybe in the right context, over time, in the right community, whatever is inside the perpetrator can be unlocked and they can learn to find the beauty inside themselves as well. Because I am also sometimes I'm an eternal optimist. Sometimes I just want to put them in jail. But my ultimate hope, the reason why I do the work, is so all involved can reach their potential.
Time is cruel because you want to rush it and you can't. And yet that's the ultimate medicine that no one wants to talk about because you can't bill for it. You can't do anything.
You can't bill for it.
I mean, it's like a tincture of time is what one of my professors once told me is the ultimate treatment, because it gives you the perspective and that ability that you're past that immediate rough patch, and it's given the opportunity to perhaps to have that person move on. Sometimes it doesn't help, but in some cases, that little bit of time for certain conditions, it's everything.
Oh my gosh. So that's so good. Time is the ultimate medicine. I think time in the context of community, I think is the healing process, right? Sometimes I talk about how I think purpose, living out your purpose in the world, is when your feet are grounded, right? Purpose grounds your feet because you know who you are, you know how you want to show up, you know what you bring to the table. And then community expands your reach, right? Because it's your circle of influence and they're supporting you and you're supporting them. And they're allowing you to reach your potential and you're allowing them to reach your potential. And then vision is what provides your movement, right? You're looking forward to whatever you are envisioning and you are pushing forward. So it's like the energy and the movement in your life. And then openness is your heart. Openness is the willingness to be vulnerable with yourself and others about what is. It's allowing your heart to engage. And then time is the encasing around it, right? That to get all of this to work, we have to take time. To heal, we have to take time. To get a new perspective, we have to take time and invest in the 5 powers. Because most often than not, time, I think, is the willingness to be uncomfortable, which we hate as human beings. I hate. And that we don't pour in the time it takes to heal and move forward because we're busy, we're uncomfortable, whatever excuse it is. I love that time is the medicine. Time is like what activates all the other powers. So good, Dr. Joe.
I interviewed an author of an ER doctor. He had a game. It's a very darkish game, but when he was on shift for the emergency room, that he and the med student and a resident would play puppy dog or ER. And the idea was that for each medical problem, what was actually going to be more impactful for the patient? A puppy dog or seeing the ER doctor? It was very disturbing to find that sometimes puppy dog won, even though you had this incredible shift and you had done all these things, but the puppy dog probably would have been better for a moment of peace, bliss, as opposed to all that we do.
Isn't that so true? Oh, like we do all this stuff in our lives and we're so busy, and between cleaning, cooking, running a business, kids, exercise, sleep, preparation for the next day. Now I own a home, so it's everything that goes with owning a home. So busy. Gosh, and really sometimes I just need to sit and have a puppy dog moment and be present and feel joy and thankfulness. I guess that's why in the rethreading process, thankfulness is one of the things that moves us out of blame and shame and into our potential into taking responsibility, right? To pause for that moment and be thankful, which is what puppy dogs do, right? They pull us into the moment, make us forget all that other stuff. And maybe instead of working so hard to accomplish all this stuff, all we need to do is sit down and be with a puppy. Part of the Rethreaded process, the ultimate goal of it is for you to take responsibility. That's the hardest thing that I keep having these discussions about. I mean, like human trafficking, women did not choose it.
Right.
Like it happened to them. It's kind of like when you get sick, right? It happens to you and you did not choose it. And yet you are now it is your responsibility to handle it. And that's a whole process in itself, I think. This is still my question. And still, I think the ultimate purpose of the Rethreaded process, the ultimate purpose of harnessing the 5 powers is for you to take responsibility of your life. Radical responsibility of whatever is going on around you. And that sucks sometimes. Gosh, it's my injustice part is like, it is not fair. It is not fair. Cancer is not fair. Human trafficking is not fair. Sexual exploitation isn't fair. Someone cut you off in traffic, not fair, right? But it's what is. And if you want to have a beautiful life, you have to take responsibility for what is in your life. I've really been thinking about this a lot lately in my own life, and I have so many things. I think that's why I believe in this so much, and I'm so passionate about it, because I feel it literally shifting things deep in my heart about taking ownership over my own life. My life is the result of myself. It ain't nobody else's fault but my own. Y'all, I'm going too deep now. Thank you so much for listening today. I really, really encourage you to go and listen to Dr. Joe's entire podcast. He is brilliant and funny, and his insights are so beautiful, and we laughed, and he is kind and humble and hilarious. Yeah, you will get so much out of this. So keep doing the work, keep pouring in. You got this. You can do hard things. We're doing this together. Much peace and love.